Hello everybody and assalamu alaikum. In today's video I will be showing you how to color skin. So let's get into it. So first we will start with this guy. Now as you can see, his base skin color is in between red and orange. Honestly, anything in between orange and darn near magenta could be used as a skin color, like a natural skin color. But once we get into this purple example here, this purple guy, I'll show you how you can basically apply the same method to different color skins that are considered to be unnatural, and depending on the lighting of your piece, it will still look natural because of ambient light, I believe it's called. So normally what I do with something like this is that since this is the base color, depending on what I'm doing, I will pick a darker, I like my things to be like highly saturated, so it'll be closer to like the right side of my little color box. See how saturated that is? It's very close to this end. Go back to him, and I'll pick something like this. Like there is very, very, very wide range. And I don't normally pick anything in between. The only thing that I will add to this little color selection is probably the whitest white and the blackest black that I can use. So as far as where I shade, if we're just talking about like a straight on view of what I do with shading, it would be right here under the eye down to right up next to the eye. Obviously underneath the nose, and depending on how big you want the nose to come out looking will determine, you know, how far up you want that shading to go. Because if you want the nose to look small, you kind of can just hit that right there, blend that out, and it'll be smaller. But I'm not giving him a very defined bridge this time. There's also shading right on the bottom of the cheek. That'll go just like this, and I actually cut into the face a bit like that. The shading that goes underneath the chin. And there's also the shading right here where the mouth connects to the face. And right there. Last bit of shading will go actually on the edge of the forehead. And the way that I learned all of this is from watching makeup videos and watching how they define the planes of their face, and then applying the same thing to art. So let's blend this out. And obviously this is not going to be like the best blend you've ever seen in your life. Get a smaller brush if that's what you need. I normally blend both sides. So that it's not harsh on either edge. Blend that out. Blend this out. If you blend it out too much, like here on the edge, you can see this is not dark enough. You can go back and blend that out, and you can see that he has a higher cheekbone because I didn't touch that space at all right here. And this part right here is higher as well. as well as right here on the sides. Now, to save me a bit of time, I can just copy all of this and transfer it over to the other side. Just to save time for the tutorial, I don't normally do this because it's just I prefer to do all this by hand. So this is not something you will actually catch me doing very often. It's just like copying my shading over to the other side. Now, as you can see, from here to here, he has a completely different plane of his face. However, you could also, like I said, hit it like this. And blend this out. And as you can see, that actually gives him a different shaped nose, but that's not what we want. Now there is also a shadow that gets cast right in between the brows and sorry if I'm not talking. I'm trying to fix that. As you can see, it'll give the person a heavier brow bone. Like this part looks right between the brows, looks like it's sort of a cliff, right? But again, that is not the look that I'm going for. Now I will be adding shading here, but it's going to be very minimal. I don't plan on giving him a very heavy brow bone. Now another thing, the next part of shading the face that we can do is also the highlights. Now highlights, like I said, I learned a lot of this from watching makeup videos. It's going to be one on the nose, and depending on the shape of the nose that you want, you could either have a shape that is a circle right on the tip of the nose, or you can make it more oval. And depending on whether you choose those two options, it'll change the shape of the nose. Having a more circle highlight makes the nose feel like it's more pointy right at the tip, but having an oval highlight on the nose gives it a more bulbous shape. And again, another thing that you could do with the highlights is also do these little triangles right on the edge of the nose, and along with one of the two highlight styles that you chose, and that will also give it a different sort of a shape. Now when you're blending out the shading or the highlights for the nose, you typically want to use sort of a smaller brush, otherwise you'll blend it too much. See, now there's the highlight there. There's a little bit of a highlight here, and depending on how wide you make this will determine how wide the nasal canal is. As you can see, that makes his face come out more. I always do an oval shape right here in the middle and blend that out. That brings his forehead forward. I do a highlight right above the eyebrows, and I make sure that the end closest to the inner part of the face is a little bit more concentrated. And depending on the look that I'm going for, I might not even blend these out right here at the eyebrows. Then there's also the highlight on top of the cheeks. Now there are two ways you can do this, and I'll show you both ways. Now, you can just do what it's like, if you've ever seen one of those eye masks that you could use, you could go ahead and make it look like, oop, make it like that, or have a little triangle here and a little one here, and just leave that space out, and I'll show you what both sides looks like. Let's see. And the reason I don't take it all the way up to the eye is because I don't normally add that shading under the eye unless I want this person to have like bags like right underneath the eye. So if you put this highlight right here, it'll naturally make the eye look like it has a little bit more shading because it's still the base color. And here's what the other one looks like. Now you can still add a little bit, kind of fan it out, because this is normally what I do, but never let them connect in the middle if this is the side that you're going for. And as you can see, it definitely does give a completely different feel depending on which side that you, which kind of highlight you choose to do. Now I typically will do this, the right side, this side right here, for rounder faces, and I'll do this side for more chiseled features. But that's not always mutually exclusive, because sometimes I mix and match. Now blend just the outer edge of this side out, and if you want to bring the top of the lips forward a little bit, you could also hit it with a highlight like that. And then blend that bad boy out, and what that does is that it brings the top of the mouth out a little bit more, but that will also make them look a little bit older, whichever you choose. Okay, so you don't necessarily not have to do it, you don't necessarily have to do it, but those are some of the things that will change the way a character looks. Now, as far as the neck, I'm not even gonna lie. Sometimes I just do whatever on the neck. I forgot the highlight on the chin. Like sometimes I will do this and just bring the middle of the neck forward, and maybe this part, I don't know what that's called, where the neck connects to the shoulders. And then, excuse me, while I grab my shading color. But as far as shading the neck, the part closest to the chin is always going to have the deepest shade out of the entire neck. Well, as long as the light is coming directly toward you, toward the character, that's where the deepest shade is going to be. And you can always just go back and add more shading if you blend out way too much. And typically, what I like to do to just add a little bit more polish is, this is not the best that I could do. Take, like I said, a even darker shade and go into places like the nose. With a very, very small brush. And add my most darkest shades right in there. And sometimes I blend it out, sometimes I don't. You don't necessarily have to blend this out depending on the style that you're going for. But like places like that, like under the lips too. Because I do want his lips to come forward. That sort of gives him a pouty look. And since I want him to be a little bit younger, pouty is good. But as you can see, just these little things make... But did I do it on the wrong layer? I definitely did it on the wrong layer. Just these little things make a huge difference. Now something else that you can do as far as shading, and this is only for those who actually use line art. If you're not a person who uses line art, this isn't necessary. You could also use your line art as a type of shading and just blend that into your shadows. Both sides. And it gives a lot of depth to whatever character you're doing. I especially like doing that on the lips and the nose. Now, I will not be doing the lips in this video. That has to be an entirely separate video because that's gonna take too long to explain. And this recording has already been 18 minutes long. I'm gonna have to cut this down. So, let's unclip this right quick so I can grab these, honestly, because clip that back. Now, he's all done. Number one is all done. Let's show you another example. I'm gonna actually just paste that above. Now, you can actually use these same colors on this guy. I'm gonna speed this up, show you what I'm talking about. However, again, to pick your colors, pick your base, pick a dark, pick a very, very light. If this doesn't work, to be honest, that might not work as the light. As you can see, it like jumping around the colors. This may not work as the highlight. I might have to go even lighter. And if I can't go in even lighter in this spectrum, I could just bring it over to an orange or a yellow, because those colors naturally will seem lighter than a more cool tone, because this is closer to cool, that's closer to cool. If you can see me moving around the little thingamabobber. Alrighty, so let's do this. I hope I remember to speed this up. Now, as you can see in that sped up clip, hopefully, I'm not gonna do the rest of the neck. Depending on where you put your highlights and your shadows on the face, you can change the shape of the face. I put his shadows a lot lower on his face, and I defined his nose to where his nose seemed to come out to a point instead of coming down to a bulb right on the bottom. Another thing that I did is that I changed the color of the highlight. The highlight that I used for him did not work for him, and it looks completely different on the different skin tones as well. So I could also, because what I did with this is that I just went to a lighter side, which is more desaturated, which is not typically what I would do. I don't typically desaturate my highlights. I normally go like all in because I just really like highly saturated colors on skin because it gives it more depth. If you are looking a little ashy, if your brown tone characters are looking a little ashy, bring your skin tones to the more saturated side. Now what I could do also is take that same thing and just change the color of the highlight, and that completely changes it. But what I would do is probably even go there and make him a completely different color. So your highlights will change. Your highlights and your shadows will change your color. Now, I can make the highlight, his shadows a different color as well, and go here, and that also completely changes it as well. So depending on what colors you choose to be your highlights and your shadows, which at this point I believe his shadow is this color, and like his highlight is something around here. It completely changes what your character ends up looking like. I also did something different with his eyelids, where some people have flatter eyelids, and some people, in his case, I didn't draw them in, but would have folds, and he wouldn't have very much space for the little shiny eyelid part, right? So that's kind of two different ways that you can color skin. I think I'm going to make this a two-parter. This looks like it's going to need to be a two-parter. This would typically be like called a lighter skin. On the right, this would be typically a lighter skin character, and this is more like, to me, because I am near this color, this to me is mid-tone, because there are people much darker than this, so I wouldn't even call this dark skin, although it's getting there. So what we're gonna do in part 2 is we're gonna do these guys, him and him. I'm excited about this. I actually just finished doing a piece with this color specifically, and like I said, if you can't wait for the part 2, a tip for coloring people with darker skin is when you are doing, the shades and the shadows, and sometimes I'll even work backwards, and I'll make this the shade, and then the highlight, I'll just do highlight and then another highlight on top of that to more define the skin, make it saturated. Do not go out making your brown skin characters look ashy. We are too far past that. Your brown skin characters do not need to look ashy. And with that, I will end this video, and I'll just you know, we'll come back for a part 2. I didn't expect this to take as long as it did, but we'll come back for a part 2. So I'll see you next week, or you'll see me next week if you're still interested in this topic. Assalamu alaikum. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you come back for more, and I hope you'll come back for part 2. Follow me on all my platforms. Go shop at my shop. I have some new stickers coming up towards the end of January, early February, and I hope you would enjoy. Bye.